Alright, this is hopefully a short tutorial about how I do my maps. And I do use a color palette, standardized down here. I ripped it from a map of Bangladesh not too long back. And you can sample the image or something. I'll post it for some people later. But the real point of it is that each color represents a difference in elevation. The water starts with deepest to lightest, but the land starts with lowest to highest. Um, for these uh, less precise maps, I only use the first four colors of the ocean. They're all starting from right to left. The first four colors, but I generally stop about here with the land height unless it really is a massive peak. But to be honest, these maps are imprecise, and that's a good thing in this particular case. Anyways, I'm going to make the assumption that you already have your land shapes picked. And this is something I stole from Cloud Render and fiddle with a little bit. But it doesn't actually matter for the purpose of the tutorial. I'm just going to be showing you how to make it look like a map. I generally start at the outlines in a color, kind of a charcoal gray color, not true black. And I really don't know why I do that, but I just do. It doesn't actually matter. But once you have your shapes, played, not played, made out, you want to make a duplicate. Hide the original under the ocean. And we are going to take the first land color and fill. Now, as personal preference, I do like to outline my first layer of land. You don't have to, and you can experiment with colors that you like. I just use an outline object plugin so that the outline would be kind of smallish, not too, you know, just enough to get it visible. And then you're going to add another layer, and this will be the real color. Um, if you're fastidious about your work, you'll be doing a new layer for every new color you add, but actually I find it's pointless when you're working with this type of map. Just having your initial color separate from your land base is enough. And what you're going to do is you're basically just going to trace the inside of your island, add some wiggles and general shapes and stuff, and just fiddle around until you're happy. Smaller islands doesn't take as long, so I like to start with those. Because if you start with the big part, you get demoralized pretty easily, especially if something goes wrong. And while it's possible for little islands to be extremely tall, I don't really see that so much on maps, so I tend to make my little islands to be rather low in elevation. And remember, this isn't like a satellite image. This is more like a topographical height map thingamajigger. I don't really understand the words I'm using. Something, something, something make me sound intelligent while I do it. Because I'm going to be honest, most of what I do is guesswork, and I emulate. I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. And as you can see, I'm basically just scribbling. I use a pencil. I don't use any um anti-aliasing. I alias the crap out of it. But you can just add some random tidbits and fiddle with it. I chose islands for this tutorial because they're easy to start with, but the principle works with just about everything. And these first layer of height is what takes the longest. And generally, when I do each layer, I do one layer at a time. I just do the whole thing, and I just step by step. One thing you gotta watch out for when using a pencil is you end up with blocky shapes that look a tad bit unrealistic. And it's okay if you have those spots, little tiny individual pixels that, you know, don't make it. That actually looks rather real. If you look at real maps sometime, you'll notice how fake they all look. And there's probably some kind of formulas and process where you can get precisely realistic shapes for your land and height, and nothing will look weird, wonky, but honestly, nobody gives a shit. People who notice, who would actually truly notice and care, aren't going to be looking at your map. What I'm doing there is I'm adding lines that when I do the final fill, these parts won't be filled in. They'll remain lowland kind of looking things, I guess. I just add them wherever I think they look good. And immediately it starts looking like a map. Who would have known? Who'd have thunk? Save often. That's the first layer. And like I said, I don't do separate layers for mine. So I'm just going to grab another color and immediately jump in. Be sure to fill your coffee cup up before you sit down because this will take a long while. But just kind of a zen thing. You just get in the moment and fill and paint and fill and paint. And little strange quirks and flighty details. Because, like I said, real maps look fake as hell. And they have those little quirks and details. People say the rivers don't split, but go look at Bangladesh or Mississippi. They say lakes are rare. Well, that's true, but man made lakes are not. We're very good at damming things up. And ourselves. We're good at damming ourselves too. Most important, damn it. Most importantly, one of the things you got to remember is to take it one step at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. If you mess up, you can fix it. Most time, if you mess up, it doesn't even look like a mess up by the time you get around back to fixing it. But I like pixels, they're forgiving. They're easy to paint, and like shorts, they're comfy to wear. But if you have a shaky hand or you have a hard time doing it, zoom in. Zoom in as far as you can go. You'll get it. I have terrible shaky hands. But it's actually good when you're painting stuff because you get realistic lines. Well, I say lines, you get realistic blobs that way. And yeah, you can just add single pixels in some places. It's starting to look like something. Go up a layer, and you start rocking and rolling again. Remember, mountains tend to run in chains, and that's one of the secrets about islands is that islands are effectively just underwater mountains with the tops exposed. So islands should tend to run in chains. Archip- Archipelagos? I don't know how to pronounce that word, but those are fairly uncommon. But they're essentially just the tops of mountain ranges. So when you make your mountains, they tend to run in lines and kind of like the branches of trees. Nature's full of fractal patterns like that. People say fractals and clouds and stuff ain't real, but that's the way nature works, y'all. Something, something, something path of least resistance, sciencey word. Only the north a little bit more mountainous than the south. And these won't even be terribly tall. There'll be a lot of unused colors left at the end, but these are islands. And like I said, they don't tend to get as tall as land mountains. And I follow the rule of England that things are a lot more jagged and mountainy in the north than in the south, so things can be smoother down south. Go up one color, and we just keep on trucking. You can be as detailed with these as you want to be, or just, generic and bland as you like. The more generic you are, the harder it is for people to call you out for having bad geography. And remember to get coffee first. Next time I'll figure out how to layer in music over the video or something, because I am terribly boring. Okay, now we're getting into the final mountain areas, and there won't be that many of these. Don't fret too much about it if you don't have a lot of room. And yeah, some of these layers will only be just a handful of pixels. Alright, that about does it for this section. Now that we have the land color, I'm going to rename this land colored. We're going to go down, add a layer above the ocean, ocean heights, and we are going to start doing the fun part. And by fun part, I mean awful. It's awful. Okay, with water, you're basically doing the heights like you do normally, but in reverse. And these are essentially underwater sections of your land, so they're going to follow the shape very, very similarly. But there may be sections that are a little wider, a little more deep or peaky. There'll be valleys and mountains and crags and stuff under there too, but they'll be underwater. Useless, but from a map making perspective, they give your map some pizzazz, so go ahead and add the damn things. And don't worry about these. You can be imprecise as hell with these, and nobody is really going to notice or care. And you can add some detail to otherwise boring areas like these just by adding water. You look at that, that's terribly round, but underwater it's more like a upside down Pit Boy, I guess. I don't know. Uh, figure out how to do the voice filter thing. Nice long peak, some jaggedy barbs, island or two underwater. Like I said, remember, following the initial land outlines. So even on the interior water parts, you're going to be doing that a lot. And that's the first layer. And like I said, you're going to have underwater islands. So go ahead and add random splotches and reefs and shit and whatever you can think of. It doesn't actually matter. They're just there for your benefit mostly, and other people who want to be nitpicky about looks bland. And those people are what I call pains in the butt. Okay, that's enough. Meh, meh. We're gonna go. Oh crap! I'm doing it backwards. Well, this still applies. Just change the color. I said do it backwards, and I started doing it the reverse way. Yeah, start with this color first, the lightest. Don't be bark. Don't make mistakes. In this case, I actually recommend making multiple layers because you're planting layers underneath each other, not just adding over. You're doing under. So when you merge down later, it'll become one layer, but you can do the broad strokes. With the lower you go, more broad your sweeps can be. Like I said, you're doing it in reverse, so and these are just the broad strokes. I suppose being underwater with constantly flowing water, which erodes everything it touches, tends to give the underwater features a more smooth look than you'd see on land. So, yeah. And let's go ahead and imply there's other crap down here. It doesn't even matter. It's blob. But yeah. Merge down and yep, that's it. That's the island of Wanahakalugi, I guess. But you don't even have to add those color layers. One or two is fine. All 7 of these is overkill. Because by the time you get down to these, you're just going to be doing boop, boop, boop. Now, I am not pleased with that outline, so that's why I told you to make a backup. Delete it. Man, that looks kind of cool by itself. There's an ocean for it. You don't have to have the lines. Fill these again. You don't have to have the outlines. As you can see, it looks perfectly fine without them. But I think the outline makes it pop a little better, so I'm going to add another one. But this time I may just use a blue. Alright, that works. Now for the bonus material. If you want to do map markers, I always recommend using simple shapes and filled shapes. I generally just find that easier to deal with. Just a simple circle. And you only had to get the one perfect because the rest of them you can just copy and paste. And if you want, you can use different sizes to represent populations. And I'm not going to go through adding a whole ton of them, but I'm going to set the layer to multiply. Oh, not multiply. Just fuck it. Normal. With a little bit of bleed through. Just because I like the look. If you want to add roads, I like using orange or some similarly bright color, and I just pencil it in the same as I would anything else. Roads, like rivers, tend to follow the path of least resistance, except where it'll save time. If you want to add names, I highly recommend doing pick a simple font like Open Sans. Remember to turn back on aliasing once you start doing text and stuff. And then you can just do stuff like outline them. There. Should have went with that in the first place. White with black outline for visibility. That's the basic premise of my map making. Thanks for hanging with me this long. It's been 30 damn minutes. So if you have any questions, just holler at me. And if you want the PDN file or whatever, just you want the actual color palette down here instead of just an image of it, let me know. I got a couple different ones, but this is the best one I've used thus far. It's the best consistent results. Catch y'all on the other side.